tennis balls and basketballs and volleyballs. Oh, face me. Did you ever wonder what happened to the white tennis ball? Yeah, there used to be a white tennis ball. Everybody used to play with the white. Well, there's nobody better than me to tell you what happened to it, because I'm the father of the yellow tennis ball. And I changed the world's habit. And it's maybe of interest to you for me to tell you that Dave Simonds story. I was working for a company called the General Tire and Rubber Company. I had nothing to do with tires, because I was the director of advertising of the plastics division. And one of our products, we had a variety of products in the plastics division. We made vinyl sheeting, furniture covering, boat covering, automotive interiors, stuff like that. And one day, I get a call from my boss. He was in Akron, Ohio. I was in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And he told me, look, Dave, we just took over the Penn Sporting Division, which was another division of the plastics division. And they're down in Pennsylvania, in a town called Jeannette, Pennsylvania, because we had 18 plants around the country and one in Ireland. He said, I want you to go down there and take a look at the operation in the sports division, because they made tennis balls and basketballs and volleyballs and stuff like that. And I found out later the reason they gave it to my boss was the whole division was losing money. And he was a remarkable little Israeli guy who became my boss. Brilliant. He could come into a plant and take a look at their operating costs and tell if there's a toilet leaking on the 3rd floor. He could read that out of the numbers. It was remarkable. So I took a trip down to Jeannette, Pennsylvania, and it was a real old factory building. The fact that was not new to me, living in Lawrence, working in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which was totally old factory buildings. And they had been making tennis balls in that old plant since something like 1885. And I couldn't believe what I saw, because they had not changed their method of making tennis balls since 1885, to the extent that, you know, a tennis ball is a rubber or plastic core covered by 2 pieces of felt. You would think that the women putting the felt on the ball would be sitting and the balls would come around to them on a machine. The balls were stationary. The women ran around, and they had been running around that table since 1880 something, to where there was a groove in the wooden floor that they were running. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, oh my God, no wonder they're losing money. How can they make money making tennis balls like this? The worst part of the situation was they were making tennis balls for somebody named Wilson, which was the biggest name in tennis balls. And they would, for 4.5 days a week, they would run tennis balls, white tennis balls, and stamp them Wilson. And the other half a day, they would run white tennis balls and stamp them pin, because that was the situation with who sold the most balls at that time. Matter of fact, the other way they measured it was, Sears Roebuck in those days was the big name in retail, not Walmart. I'm talking about the mid-1960s, around there. And the way we measured how we were doing was to find out how many cans of Wilson and how many cans of tennis balls sold off the shelf in one day. And right at that point, it was 10 to 2. 10 Wilson to 2 Penn. And I went out to Akron to report to my boss, tell him what I saw. I just said, you won't believe it. So he said, no wonder. He said, we're not making any money. He said, you know, they're squeezing us too. They know they can. And they're our big customer. If they decide to go someplace else, we're done. And as a matter of fact, it would make money for the company if they went someplace else, because it's a total loss. He says, Dave, see what you can do. I said, Sam, you can't, you know, you got to have money to buck something like that. Because yeah, they're advertising on television, they're advertising in all the magazines, and we can't afford that. He says, come up with a program, and we'll talk about it. Well, this was the mid-60s, and upcoming was an event called the U.S. Olympics. And at that point, nobody in this country was interested in the Olympics. Surprising compared to the interest that the current Olympics has in the world today. The American public didn't care. Well, NBC television had spent, I don't know how many million, buying the rights of the Olympics, and they couldn't sell commercials on it. Nobody was interested. The NBC salesman used to call on me because I was a potential customer for some of my other products, maybe. And he kept pushing the Olympics on me because there were such bargains to be had. And as a matter of fact, I turned down a real bargain on a show that was just beginning called Saturday Night Live. I could have bought into that show for peanuts, but Saturday night, what are you, crazy? Saturday night, 11:30? You know, that's with that time. Well, what happened was this. A big match in hockey was coming up with the USSR, a Russian hockey team. And the newspaper started to play up this game because it was the height of the Cold War. And they started whipping up interest in the Russian-American hockey game. And who knew? But the guy from NBC had a package for me that he couldn't walk away from it. We could afford that. One 30-second commercial, Monday through Friday. That's what it was. I don't remember how much it was, like $240,000, which was a good part of our total budget, but okay. So I came up with a program based on that, went into the boss, and explained the situation. he says, well, Dave, let's talk about this. I said, well, I haven't got much time. I got to tell him, make it out. Well, the problem was this. The laboratory guys had come over to me and say, hey, Dave, we've done some tests on tennis balls, and we find that this yellow-green color is 6 times the visibility of the white tennis ball. And are you interested in that? I said, I don't know. Let me run it by somebody. First, I got to run it by Wilson. So I ran it by Wilson, went over to Wilson, and they weren't interested. There's a good reason why. In those days, the big name in tennis was Wimbledon. The U.S. Open wasn't that big at that time. Wimbledon ran the tennis world. And the management at Wimbledon had decided everything had to be white. The tennis balls had to be white, men's shirts had to be white, shorts had to be white, women's tennis dresses had to be white, it all had to be white. And Wilson owned the Wimbledon ball. What does that mean? Well, in order for you to advertise that Wilson's ball is used at Wimbledon, you gotta pay Wimbledon money. I bought U.S. Open because it didn't cost much. But Wimbledon ran the show. And Wilson was not interested in yellow because they would have to face the Wimbledon people, and they wouldn't do it. It's okay. We had a little advertising agency in Akron, and I called the guys together and I said, hey, we got to make up a commercial, a 30-second commercial. I want to introduce the yellow ball, the Penn yellow ball. And I don't know who came up with the idea. I can't claim it was me. One of the guys in the meeting came up with an idea. He says, you know, I've seen this fast photography cameras, and he says, I wonder if we took a tennis ball and whacked it at a high speed against a racket, what would happen? And you know, to the strings, what happens when the ball hits a racket? I said, hey, it's an interesting idea. Well, there were only 2 cameras like that in the United States at that time. One was in Chicago, one was in Hollywood. And that's the kind of camera you've seen when a drop of water comes down and it goes like that. That's a high-speed camera. I investigated that, and it cost $18,000 a day to bring it in from Chicago. Oh, wait a minute. Well, hey guys, how many days do you think I have to have it? We're guessing we can do it in 3 days. Okay, we made the commercial, and it was terrific. It was really great. Now we go back to the Russian-American hockey game on a Tuesday night of that week. We had already run the commercial on Monday. This is Tuesday night, and the Americans beat the Russians. Big news all over the country. Well, by Wednesday night, the United States was watching the Olympics because of that win. So I had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which the ratings that I had they would have charged me $1 million for the $248,000 that I spent. Unbelievable. Let me tell you what an effective selling tool television is when you got a commercial that people watch and absorb and you got their attention. It is unbelievable. Because the following Wednesday, remember I told you 10 Wilson, 2 Penn? The following Wednesday, after that commercial had run, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night, with the ratings that had, and with the effectiveness of the commercial, we were already 6-8. 8 Wilson, 6 Penn. And we couldn't believe it. We just couldn't believe it. But the yellow ball, all of a sudden, people started asking for it. Dealers didn't have them. You know, we had them. The people started asking him, and our salesmen are calling up saying, "Hey, for Christ's sake, you got to ship yellow balls. I forget you, they're asking, they're killing me." That started it. And some 4 years later, when I retired, we had surpassed Wilson and on the way to the world's largest tennis ball maker, which they still are today. The name Penn, if you get a can of Penn, it says right on it, world's largest maker of tennis balls. So that's what happened to the yellow ball.